Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sharper Edge with Betty Parker. I am glad that you have decided to stop by and join us again this week. I'm so appreciative of all my guests. We are taking these people issues one as at a time, as I mentioned to you we would do. And so I'm joined today by the beautiful Nicole Vaughn, who's going to come in her I'm going to say in her capacity as a human resource professional, but she's coming on her own. Nicole, I'm not even going to mention where you work because I don't want people to think you're coming in as a representative of where you work, but only because of your expertise as a human resource professional and as a trainer. Because here's what I find um, in the work that we do, both Nicole and I, and so many others that you will see, and some that you've already seen in past episodes, those of us who do this work around human behavior, we do training, we do facilitation. And Nicole, you can tell me in a minute, but my favorite part is the actual being in a classroom setting and facilitating with people. Yeah, we can go out and do speeches and speak as keynotes and do individual coaching and that kind of thing, but I think being in a classroom setting really helps to involve people in the conversation. I love having an opportunity to talk to people, to ask questions, to have them talk back to me, because I learn and I can observe and I find out what is meaningful to them, what they're most challenged by, what kind of solutions they think really works, what they want to know more about, all those things that we do when we're in conversation and communication with each other. You can't get that when you're the only one that's doing the talking. So I love being in a classroom setting. And so what I like about what we're going to be talking about today is just when it comes to that human behavior, what is it that helps us to understand each other better? And so emotional intelligence, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Emotional intelligence helps us to be more aware of our own emotions in certain situations and the emotions of others. Are we as observant as we should be? Can we connect to another person when they are feeling a particular way? Do we hold ourselves accountable for our own behavior in certain circumstances? So that's what Nicole Vaughn and I are here to talk about today: emotional intelligence, what it means to you, what it means to us, what we've observed. And so, Nicole, I welcome you here today, and thank you so much for your time and indulging me in this conversation.
Thank you so much, Betty. It's an honor to be here and to learn from you. You were giving me credit. I'm like, no, I'm learning from you. I've been training for years, but I learn from you all the time. So thank you so much. And this topic is something I've been passionate about for so many years, even in my personal life. So thanks for having me.
Oh, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, tell me about that. Why has it been so passionate for you all these years?
Gosh, I will tell you a little story. This is a true story. In the early 90s, I loved a good yard sale. And I used to go to many garage sales. And I remember it was probably maybe 1995. I'm not sure exactly what year it was. I went to this yard sale and I saw these books for sale. And I saw this one book that said emotional intelligence. I think it was like 50 cents, 25 cents I paid for it. And I thought, that name, emotional intelligence, wow, that's deep. This is really kind of cool. What is it? And so I put the book away embarrassingly and shelved it for years. And as I started taking more college classes and studying more and learning about behavioral science and just why do we do things and understanding ourselves, I thought, you know what? I'm I'm seeing this word in the news now, emotional intelligence, EQ, EI. Wait a minute, I think I have that book. So I went home and sure enough, in the attic, in a box, I had the book that I'd bought and started reading it and just researching as much as I could and learning about it. And the part for me that I love is first with myself, seeing myself, being able to laugh at myself and to admit my mistakes and grow, but also to help people get along better. I've always felt that my role, my purpose in life is to be a difference maker, be a peacemaker. And how can I help people understand themselves? Because it starts with self awareness first, knowing myself, my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors, why I did this, why I didn't do that. But then knowing myself, and then in myself in relation to other people. So what does that mean? Like, okay, now that I know this about myself, now can I take it an extra step and kind of look at how do I relate with other people? What is my approach with other people? If it's in your family, in your marriage, in your relationships at work, with your children, it's just kind of, it starts with self, but then knowing yourself in relation to other people. And I think that's probably why it is the reason why I'm so passionate about EQ, is just helping people learn about themselves. And then how can we all get along better, and learn about how we relate better with other people? How does EQ affect how we relate with other people?
Absolutely. Because actually, when you think about it, it's our emotions that drive us in a lot of things, right? Decision making, how we respond to people when they say certain things, whether good or bad. It doesn't always have to be the bad things. Sometimes I'm elated because somebody said something that I can relate to, and it gives me joy. And there are other times people will say things that you find disrespectful and you want to respond back. And how much of us do we take into consideration? We always thinking about what the other person did, but we don't think about, okay, do I pause in this moment? Did I hear them right? Am I misinterpreting what they say? The whole self talk thing, which we need to get real good at, because most of our self talk has a lot of bias in it. Oh, I know he did not say that to me just now.
And how dare they?
Right. So that's what emotional intelligence is. It's about being intelligent about how we respond, about what our emotions are doing, and then what do we do as a result of that. So, Michelle, what, Nicole, when you are doing, because do you do training around this?
I do train emotional intelligence. I have for about 15 years. It started with leadership, and then I started a class that I teach called Self Mastery, the Journey to Self Mastery, where
Oh,
we talk about emotional intelligence. So when I first started doing it, was the original model, the 5 elements of emotional intelligence. Now it's 4, so I had to kind of modify and change some of the activities and things I do. I just love when we do these little activities where it's just that aha moment in themselves, because it's like, oh, I didn't realize that about myself, or
mhm.
oh wow. That's what I love.
Absolutely.
Light bulb moments.
Light bulb moments. Oh, those make us, it makes us feel like what we're doing is worthwhile, huh? I'm
Yeah.
connecting with these people. I'm actually sharing something that's of value to them. So, what do you find, as you think through the many years you've been doing this, what's been the most enlightening part of knowing, yourself in terms of how you manage your own emotions? What have you learned about yourself in the teaching of
Gosh.
this topic?
Well, I would say humbly that in teaching this topic, I tell people I may be passionate about the topic, but I'm not an expert in it. I've never met anybody who has scored. If you take any of those assessments, I've never met anybody who's been perfect in all 4 areas. And that every time I talk about the subject, I learn I still have much more learning and growing to do within myself. And I think that
Yeah.
that realization is that you never reach a final destination. I think with EQ, or a resting point, I think there's a way that you continue to grow and evolve throughout life. Some people call it maturing, some people call it older wisdom or aging, whatever you want to put a label on it. But I think that, and then other people are like, take me as I am. I am who I am. I'm not going to change, and that's fine too. But I'm just saying, I think that with EQ, there's always room to grow
Mhm.
throughout your whole life and evolve from that. And I just love helping people realize that, and seeing them when I'm like, did you take the assessment? And they're like, yes, I did. And what were you surprised? Were anything surprised you? And a lot of people say that in their area of self management is where they thought they would score higher,
Yep.
but it's not as high as they thought.
Yep.
Um, so it seems like self management, that self regulating behavior, is where people are really um, rating themselves higher than they're really scoring. That's what I've
Mhm.
noticed. Kind of, I don't want to say a trend, but that's some of the input I've gotten. I try to give them. I put them in the training environment. I put them in activities to get them thinking about themselves at that moment. So even before I talk about the 4 elements or 4 dimensions of EQ, I'll do situational activities with them. And then it's kind of, again, that light bulb moment of, at that moment in time, How did you handle that situation? So you got
Yeah.
to kind of, even though you're at work, you got to get them into a situation that's more personal, and like finding out where their hot buttons are, like how much is too much, how, what's your threshold, how much can you handle. And so some of the situations I do, that really helps them think of, oh yeah, so I love those moments when they can realize that.
So you've kind of answered my next question because I was asking you about you in terms of what you've learned. Then I was going to ask you what are some of the most common things you feel other people have learned in your classes. So you've told me that you're mentioning the four different areas too. So I want you to share those with
Yeah,
our audience as well, because I'm sure they're like, well, what
sure.
four are they?
Absolutely. And as much as think I know it and have it memorized, I had to pull it up for myself too, just to
I,
make
I was
sure.
sitting here thinking, self awareness, self regulation. I'm like, I was trying to, but I couldn't come up with the other two. I forgot.
So the original model came out, it was self-awareness, self-control or self-management, motivation, empathy, and social skills. And then it
Okay.
kind of morphed into a four-box model, or we call them four elements or the four dimensions of emotional intelligence. And they are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So when you think of the first two is self-awareness and self-management. That is what we call your personal competence or your self-mastery. It's you, inside of you. It's what's happening inside of you. So when we talk about self-awareness, that is recognizing your thoughts, your feelings at that moment, what might be going on. I'll give you an example. One example I give is when somebody sends you an email from work and you read it and you're like, oh gosh, no, they didn't. Or they might be accusing your department of something and you instantly get frustrated. You're mad. You just can't believe they sent that other email again. And you feel all these feelings inside. That is emotional. That's that self-awareness is, oh, you're feeling this at that moment. This is what I'm feeling. Even though I'm feeling this way, this might not be what's really happening. You're just kind of absorbing it like a sponge, but you're not letting it control you. That's that self-awareness of what's really going on. And then when you talk about self-management, that other part of you, that is the how am I regulating this? That's that self-regulating behavior or self-control. So what I tell people is when you get that email that's upsetting or frustrating or gets kind of under your skin, then the self-management part is, what do I do? How do I respond? So instead of clicking reply and you're sending that email and you click send immediately, you pause, you calm down, you go for a walk, you rehearse your response before. Maybe even use AI nowadays. What's my proper response? Write it a little more professional. It's the what do you do with it? So the first part is the awareness is what I see, and then the other part is what I do. So that's the self-management part. So don't click send and respond
Don't
immediately.
click send just yet.
Yeah. So that's the self. So now when we talk about social competence, that's you with other people. So what I say is social competence is like group mastery. It's how you interact with other people. So the first area is your social awareness. And that's just an example I give is with social awareness is that is what you see again. So that's like when you walk into a staff meeting, I'm giving giving real life work situations. Like when you walk into a staff meeting, you walk into the room, you can sometimes feel the mood of the room or the
Mhm.
emotional temperature. That is social awareness. Or maybe you're aware that the group just got some bad news recently. You're aware of it. You notice the emotions of other people. It's what you see and what you observe. And then the relationship management part, the other part of the relationship is the empathy, the social skills, the listening skills. What are you doing to manage relationships? How do you demonstrate that you're really listening to someone? How do you show caring and empathy with other people? And I also tell people that's where your communication skills really come in, those soft skills that we
Mhm.
don't value as much. But also, what are the everything things, the action things that you do to manage relationships? So I tell people, for example, the activity I give them is I want you to think of two people in your personal life that are near and dear to your heart. And think of two things for each person, two things that are that you notice about them, that you love about them or cherish about them, something that they enjoy. Like, I'll give you an example. My daughter, she lives in Nashville, Tennessee. She loves country music and she loves Shark Week. She loves Shark Week. So then the next question I say is, what are some specific things that you do to manage that relationship and to show that person that you care about them? And so I tell them that, even though we live a couple hours apart, 6 hours driving time, 7 hours, I try to call her every other day. We don't talk every day. But when it comes to Shark Week every July on Discovery Channel, we talk about, oh, have you seen the show lineup? Oh, Mom, did you see that show last night? Oh my gosh, did you watch the latest Air Jaws? And I do that intentionally because I know she loves sharks so much. And I show an interest in what she's passionate about too. So then I extend that in my activities is, what do you do with your coworkers, your team, your leadership? How are you showing that relationship management part with those people too? Not that we're going to know every little private detail about a person, but how do you show relationship management with your teammates as well? So those are some examples in the 4-box area. I did want to share some interesting statistics for you, but I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to say before I went to some statistics.
Oh, no, that's great. Go with it.
So here's some really true, interesting data that I have learned over the years, based on different locations and different agencies. The Center for Creative Leadership, they do a lot, CCL, on emotional intelligence, and they say that 90% of a leader's success is attributed to their level of EQ. So what they say, and Daniel Goleman, the founder too, says that, when you do good in your job, you're usually promoted to a manager. So they promote you to be a manager. And so now you got to lead other people. But what keeps you successful, what keeps you doing well, is your level of emotional intelligence. Because if you're not good at emotional intelligence, you don't know how to relate to other people. You don't know how to lead a team. You could be toxic. You may not have psychological safety. You may not even be aware that you're doing these things.
Right.
And so a leader who's not emotionally intelligent will drive employees out of the organization. Whereas if they have better emotional intelligence, they will usually retain their talent longer. Another interesting statistic is that among leaders with multiple strengths in the area of self-awareness, 92% had teams with high energy and high performance, whereas in contrast, leaders who had low self-awareness created negative climates almost most of the time, almost 80% of the time.
Yeah.
And then the last one that I want to share with you is everybody. So it's not just leadership, it's everyone. And this is the alarming one. So when we talk about self-awareness, most people think they are self-aware, but only 10 to 15% actually are. And that's alarming.
That's a very small number. Well, and that's probably why we have the issues we have here today, right? It's people see, we hear a lot of times folks say how there's this lack of civility among people talking to each other. We don't have empathy anymore. It seems, people used to be, there was a village, right? There was community. Now it seems like there's so much separation and division. And it's like people really don't care. We see this loss of, humanity almost, people expressing or examining themselves against what it means to be human today. And so when you were even describing how, people learn how to connect or know how to connect with a whole group of people, I kept thinking about reading the room. We use that term because there are people who will enter into a big situation. Everybody's feeling a particular way and they are so self-absorbed, I guess. I don't know. I just lack the emotional intelligence we're talking about, that they will say or do things that will be off-putting to the rest of the group because we're like, hey, we're all over here feeling a particular way. You're off in the stratosphere in the way that you're coming in here. It doesn't fit in with what the environment is right now. Have you even thought about what's going on with us? So it seems like they're being selfish in that moment because they can't really relate to what everybody else is dealing with. We're
like, we just got the bad news memo, but we're all happy for you. You're going on vacation, but you don't need to sit in the meeting and talk about it for 20 minutes.
Right.
We're not in the mood to hear it right now.
Right. Absolutely.
Get that memo.
Yeah. And so something else you said earlier too was because I'm kind of in this crossroads of, I just had a birthday entering into another decade. I know, right? But I was thinking about that. You get reflective the older you get. So I'm entering into my 60th year. Well, I guess when you think about birthdays, I've already completed the 60th year really. When you're born, you're zero, but after you completed the year, you've actually had a year life under your belt, but we get it. All right. So I was being reflective about that. And I was thinking, I have a cousin who calls me Breeze, right? Because he says, I'm just a cool breeze. I don't let nothing bother me. I'm just kind of, because I'm one of these people who likes to wear the rose colored glasses. I like to see the positive side of things to my detriment at times, though, Nicole. Because there are times when you have to accept the grief. Sometimes you have to accept people's emotions when they have a sense of loss or anger or frustration, betrayal, whatever it is that they're feeling, whatever emotions they're in at that time. I remember a situation where a friend was diagnosed with cancer. And because I don't like people to be sad. I don't like to be sad. So I'm that glass half full person. I'm always looking for the brighter side of things. And I immediately want to get to, oh, but you're going to be fine. Oh, I am sure your prognosis will be good. I'm trying to be an encourager. And people need that in those moments, but they also need those moments to grieve the diagnosis, the loss, whatever, right? You can't just jump past what they've heard. You got to be there and sit with them, let them feel what they need to feel, and just be there as a good listener and a friend. And I earlier on didn't do that very well. I'm more cognizant of it now. I had to, scold myself and say chill on all of the positivity stuff. It's okay for a time, but you got to give people time to feel and be in those moments. And I had to learn that. So as I'm looking at my 60 years gone now, I don't feel like I'm Breeze anymore. You mentioned something a little bit earlier about maturing and wisdom and all that. I feel a sense of impatience now in my life, where I still feel like people, whatever you want to do you. I am not going to sit here in judgment of you, but I'm less tolerant of things that I think that are wrong in the world. I'm looking more, existentially, I guess. You start getting older, you start thinking about your legacy. What have I left? What kind of impact am I making on other people? What kind of impact am I making, and a footprint am I leaving in the world? If my, as you start, the days behind you are greater than the ones in front of you. So, you just start thinking about things in a more meaningful way, I guess. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't feel like I'm as breezy as I used to be. I call things out that I wouldn't call out before. I'm less patient with and less tolerant of foolishness, and people being mean and disrespectful and unapologetic and backbiting and all those things that get in the way of us building those great connections
Mhm.
that we should have. And you're not nowhere near my age, but how do
Not
you when you think about, even, as you deal with people, like I said, we're in these classrooms and we have the ability to have connections with lots of different people and to hear their takes on life and what they're experiencing. What's your perspective then when you're thinking about this whole idea of emotional intelligence and just the way we treat each other in this day and time?
yes, yes. One thing I have noticed, I haven't had a lot of in-person training since the pandemic. A lot of it has been online, and that's one thing I've noticed too with the ability to relate is there's something missing there, a component of missing, and I've heard that from a lot of adult learners too. Is that when we talk about emotional intelligence, we talk about relating to other people. The communication part, as you mentioned, that skill of being able to communicate and have healthy dialogue is declining like
Yes.
so much. You go into an elevator, nobody talks to each other anymore. We have isolated ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the reasons. I've read some things on it, but we kind of isolate ourselves. And I'm living my best life. Some people have viewed it as a selfish moment or selfish streak, but there is a concern. There's a concern about uh, healthy conversations. How do we have dialogue? How do we have dialogue as a team at work or even in our families? Our
In our
families,
families.
we used to, at the Thanksgiving table, we used to talk all the time. Now we don't even talk. We avoid
Right.
conversations. We avoid
Yes.
healthy debate. We avoid certain things. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of things impacting that right now. I try to help people remember that there is value in communicating, and that we can't force people to talk, we can't force people to communicate on our level. I tend to be more introverted. People don't believe that about me, but my mom's like, "You're not introverted." Yeah, I am. But she's like, "But you like people," and I'm like, "It's not about that. It has nothing to do with, I love people. It has nothing to
Right.
do with that at all." But just there's a concern about the lack of people being able to have dialogue or just
Yeah.
talking together anymore. We've all gotten a little more selfish with our time. And I know, again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, but one thing I have heard and I've observed in people is that during this pandemic, we had this compassionate exhaustion of taking care of
Yes.
other people and taking care of our world and everything. I've heard a lot of people say after the pandemic, it's my time. I need to start rebuilding my life. I need to take care of myself. I need to
Yeah.
invest in myself. I need to reclaim my time. And I don't know if that's because, if that's maybe a reason we're not communicating as much anymore. I don't know all the factors. Maybe it's technology. I don't know. But I think there is a definite concern with emotional intelligence and communication. And then also to the social media and self-regulation, not getting on TikTok immediately. And, people vent now on TikTok.
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
they view
Yes.
that, they view that as self-regulating behaviors. I'm not going to go to the customer and yell at them. I'm just going to get on TikTok and vent about it. But really, is that self-regulating behavior? I can't answer that. I'm not. I think it's open for perception.
Yeah. No, I think you're right though. It takes time though to build relationships. And I don't know if we're putting that kind of time in anymore. Uh,
Right.
to your point, yeah, I get it that people had compassion fatigue during COVID did a number on a lot of us, especially from a social standpoint.
Mhm.
On the other side of COVID, we are different. But I think this is where we have to work a little bit harder too, because, to reclaim what
Yeah.
once was community. I don't think we need to abandon that. I think we need each other more now than we've ever needed each other. But
Mhm.
somehow we're lacking the skills to be able to make that happen. We are pretty much, you know, just being dismissive of, like you mentioned earlier, the soft skills. Because people are, I ain't into the warm and fuzzy stuff. We don't necessarily, I don't need to be your friend, yada yada. I just need to work with you, all this stuff, right? But it does, there are studies that have shown that people, work environments and even home environments, I mean, it does something for us physically when we can build connections with other people. It benefits us from a spiritual and emotional and mental well-being standpoint, right? So as much as you think you need to be isolated and don't want to be around other people, no, you actually need other folks. I think we were created to be interdependent. Now, I understand from introvert standpoint, you all, yeah, it's not like you don't like people. You just have to take us in small doses. So I get that. We will drain the heck out of you. Us extroverts will drain y'all. But there is, I believe, something that we can do as individuals to help rebuild us as a community and as humankind. I believe,
Mhm.
that the last part of that word being kind. You
Mhm.
know, yeah,
Definitely. Definitely. I was going to share with you too, as I teach some communication classes too, and I directly link that, your emotional intelligence, the way that you communicate is also, your emotional intelligence is related to your EQ. And one thing that I have found too is that before the pandemic, is that I did some research on topics in training and why do people go to training, and the number one biggest problem, in my opinion, in the world is our ability or inability to communicate. I think it's communication,
for sure.
and yet still it shows, because that is the biggest topic globally, training
Yeah,
topic in the world, because it's the most issues. Think of it: business writing skills, public speaking, having difficult conversations,
yeah,
business writing, all that is relating to other people. And it is the most globally expenditure in training. We
yeah.
send people able to get better in these areas, and it directly impacts your emotional intelligence too.
Absolutely, absolutely, because you're communicating, right? So your words have impact. Your
Mhm.
words have power,
Yes.
even your nonverbal cues. I mean, the way you look at me, the way whatever your body language is saying to me. And because a lot of people will watch what you do versus what they hear you say, and they make a determination about how, you feel about them or something that they've said. So you're absolutely right. That communication thing is what we need to constantly be working on, and it is hard to master it because at the end of the day, as good as you might think you are in one area, every person you're encountering is different. So your communications has to be tailored to whoever you're in front of and according to whatever the topic is you're talking about. So that can be a plethora of things, and you have to change according to all of those things. It's hard to master that. We get good at some parts, but that mastery is difficult.
It is hard to master, and a lot of people get very defensive whenever they're informed that, hey, you need to work on this, or hey, you're not listening very well, or how come you don't look at me? And a lot of what I've read is that our communication style, we associate our communication style with some of our personal identity. So when you attack a part of the way that I come across or the way that I communicate, I might feel it as a perceived attack on who I am as a person. So, what
Yeah.
do you mean I don't listen to you? What do you mean I'm not looking at you? It's like a perceived attack, and we just have to be open to receiving some of that, and that's
Right.
that self awareness part of, am I really
Right.
like that, or well, do I really look at my phone too much and not show you attentive listening, for example?
Good examples. Yeah, because our first response is to be defensive. So that's an emotion, right? We're always operating out it
Mhm.
within our emotions, or out of our emotions. So, and we need to think about that. So, to your point, that self-talk, that self-examination, when something happens that we feel some kind of way about it, rather than being defensive and pushing back on you for calling out something or giving you feedback. I like that you use the word attack because a lot of people might feel that way, and it's not an attack, it's just input, it's
Right.
feedback, it's giving you some insight into your behavior. And if you want to stop for a minute and actually take that in and roll it over in your mind and say, well, let me think about it, maybe there's some truth to what they're saying, and what should I do differently? But people don't want to do the accountability piece. They don't want to examine themselves. They don't want to feel like they've fallen short somewhere, and you can be as kind as possible in delivering that information, but some folks are just shut off. They only want the good parts of them because they're not sitting and doing the work of self examination and introspection and calling themselves out on what
Right.
they need to do. I
Right.
have a little bit of a self assessment tool that I use when I'm in class, when I do a little emotional intelligence. And I just want to, just for our viewers, just to give y'all an idea of what you should be examining. Nicole has given us some great examples. She's explained to us thoroughly what emotional intelligence is. And so I just want to, if you had to take this tool, um, and I might encourage y'all to do this. Here are just some of the verbiage that's on here. So it's written in declarative statements. It doesn't ask a question. It's just saying it so that you can think about it and you would rate yourself on this. So on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being never and 5 being always, how would you rate yourself? And this is not for Nicole. This is for you who are viewing.
I'm sitting here thinking though, wow, I got to take this one. I haven't taken this one yet, so I'm sitting there. I'm ready. I'm ready to listen to
It's
this one.
good. It's good. And it's a quick one pager. It's 20
Love it.
questions. On the backside, you do all the little, adding it up and stuff. It's got the 4: self awareness, self management, self awareness. I'm sorry, social awareness and relationship management, the 4 that you talked about. And then you score yourself, and then you interpret your score. Which of these did I rate myself lowest on? Which do I need to work more on? And I love doing this in class because then people sit back and say, wow, I really do need to do better here. And they can't blame me. This is a self assessment. This is how you viewed yourself because of the questions. So it gives them time to think. So things like, I readily admit mistakes and apologize. You know, so if I'm not willing to do that, what's getting in the way? My pride. Am I willing to hold myself
You know?
accountable? you know,
Yeah, yeah.
are we willing to have that conversation, willing to have the hard conversation with ourselves? When I feel angry, I can still stay composed.
Mhm.
It depends on what it's about and who it is, right? Because some people's opinions, I did a quick little reel the other day on matching energy. That's the new phrase. Everybody's like, I'm going to match energy. So when I think about that phrase, I'm saying, okay, so you're going to act like the person who just offended you, which means now you're going to be offensive. So instead of you being not like them, you're acting like them. They now have control over you. We
Right.
say nobody can control another person. Yeah, they can. If they're causing you to act outside of your character and to be like them when they are at their worst,
Mm,
now you're at your worst. So no, are we keeping ourselves composed? Are we? And so my little, I don't know, solution to them is, think about who's saying what, and
mhm,
then say, does their opinion matter enough to you to act outside of character, or to respond to them in the way that they're responding to you? Your opinion has to matter to me enough for me to care about what you just said. And if
mhm.
I don't know you that well, or I don't really respect your opinion that much, I am not going to go to any
Right.
length to put myself right. Okay. Okay, here's another one. I generally have an accurate idea of how another person perceives me during a particular interaction. So
Mm,
are we paying attention to the other person? Do we know what they think of us? Do we care what they think about us? Sometimes we should. Some people want to just blow off, people's feelings about them. But I think depending on who it is, if you respect that person and they're showing you something about yourself that needs some work, then
mhm,
take that into consideration. Are you paying attention?
mhm.
And then I'll do one more. I can engage in an interaction with someone and size up that person's mood based on nonverbal cues.
Ooh, reading body language. Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm,
And how are you responding to it? Do you just pass it
mhm,
over? I've seen people roll their eyes or
mm,
bristle a little bit in a situation. And the person, because I do a lot of, coaching between two people who have, a difference, a disagreement. They're at odds with each other. So we're trying to work out what the challenges
mhm,
are. And this other person's giving all these nonverbal cues, and the person over here is just passing by it. They're not even acknowledging it.
mhm,
Sometimes if I see somebody, do something like this, I'm like, you look confused. Did I say something that I wasn't clear about? What can I clarify? Or maybe you don't agree with what I said. Let me hear your thoughts. You stop in the moment and you acknowledge it and you invite them into the conversation so
mhm.
you can understand a little bit more. That's communicating, you know?
I was going to share one topic that always comes up is the crossing of arms, like how some people perceive that when you cross that person crosses their arms, that they're checked out or they don't care. And I opened that up for debate because I'm like, I know within myself that when somebody comes to my office and they present me with an issue, I'll cross my arms. And when I'm crossing my arms, I'm thinking. I'm,
Thinking, me too. Me too.
and
It's kind of
so,
like this.
yeah, but
You know?
knowing what I
Yeah.
know that some people might perceive that as differently, I will just say, I cross my arms, I'm thinking here for just a moment. And so I
Yes.
really try to make other people realize that don't be so quick to judge the nonverbals because it may not mean what you're thinking it is. So I will
Right.
usually tell people, like, let me write this down. I'm listening to you, but I got to write it down. Or I'm crossing my arms, but I'm listening, but I'm thinking right now. And crossing my arms too means I will not touch my computer and I will listen to you right now, what you have to say. So
Yes.
it's just about communicating that so other people don't misinterpret your intention. But be careful not to judge the nonverbals too fast because they're
Right.
not always true, you know?
Yes. Yes. Good points. Good points. There's so much in this communications thing, Nicole. I got so much to talk to you about. We ought to do a part two or something because I just think this is such a meaty topic. And I hope the people
Yes.
who are viewing will put in the comments your thoughts on this, what you struggle with the most, how you see yourself when
Mhm.
it comes to emotional intelligence. Do you feel like you're emotionally intelligent? If not, what do you want to work more on? And just let us know what you think and what you've heard here today. We invite you into the discussion as well. But we're at the end of it already, Nicole. So I hope you will come
Went
back and
really
further.
it
Huh?
went really quick, and I thank you so much for being part of this. I was just going to say the nice thing about emotional intelligence is that you can grow it. And that's what I meant to say at the
Yeah.
very beginning. It's something that evolves and can grow throughout your whole life. Nobody meets a final destination. You can keep growing it all the time. And
Yeah.
so don't settle if it's something you really want to do. There's so much out there. There's so many free resources to help people grow their emotional intelligence in the four areas.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you for that encouragement piece for everybody. So let us know what you think in the comments, you all. And we just thank you for stopping by and taking
Yeah.
a listen. And stick around and come back, I should say, next week for episode 10. I can't believe we're already into episode 10, where our next guest will bring us and you more information around yet another people issue. Thanks for
I can't
listening.
wait to watch them. Thank you so much for having me, Betty. And I just realized, this whole time I haven't even been looking at the camera. I've been looking at you on my computer screen. So talk about self-awareness. I just realized I was not looking at the camera. So, but
It's quite
anyways,
all right. We can see your beautiful face. So thanks for being
thank
here.
you so much for having me, Betty. We love you. We love that you're helping us learn and get better too. So thank you.
Much appreciated. Yeah, have a great week.